Hi, darlings, and welcome. So, in advance of the very exciting book launch on the 21st of May, this Friday, I'm having a little chat to some of the other co-authors, my co-authors of this book. It's been a really beautiful collaboration with a bunch of fantastic women and man. And I'm here with Lisa. Hello. And I'm just going to be finding out a little bit about her contribution to the book and her soul mission. So thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Aww. So it's so beautiful because I don't actually know a lot about your story. So why don't you tell me what can we find out if we read your chapter in this book, Soul Mission, Leaders Ushering in the New Earth?
Well, I think many people are going to be surprised where it starts because I've not always been interested in this type of work, because now I'm a healer, I'm a business coach, I call myself a visionary. But growing up, I was into science. So I kind of, to be honest, I wanted to be a psychiatrist, to be really honest. So I kind of did chemistry, biology, physics. I didn't go into medicine in the end. I went into radiography. So it was a bit of a, to go into radiography. So yeah, things like, I'm just trying to think. It feels like such a big story to share. Like I just don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, I was brought up to work really hard. I was brought up to put a lot of effort into things. I was brought up to achieve whatever I wanted to achieve, basically. Yeah. So I knew that whatever I put my mind to, I could just achieve. But that led me to burnout, basically. Just totally burnt out because I was working 90-hour weeks in a hospital doing radiography. And yeah, I went traveling, got really sick in India, and then just ended up cutting our trip short, coming back home and being in bed, not able to talk, not able to walk, not able to do much.
Wow. It's amazing, isn't it? And I think just before we started recording this interview, we were talking about it, and I was just saying, yeah, it's actually kind of similar. I think a lot of women will relate to your story because it's actually something, if you grow up in the Western world, you are kind of conditioned, is I think the word that you use, into that kind of achieving productivity mode that it does eventually lead to a failure of health, right? Physical, mental, emotional health. I mean, 90-hour weeks is just extraordinary.
Thinking back to it now, I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea how I did it. Like, to do 90-hour weeks, like I remember doing, because we do 24-hour shifts, like overnight in A&E.
You're awake for 24 hours?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I can't do that. How do you even do that? Actually, I don't want to know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, and also after those, and also it wasn't like you were just sitting there. It was, it was A&E. So especially on a Friday or a Saturday when it was really busy, it was just constant. So we were covering A&E, we'd cover ward work, we'd cover theatre work. It was insane. It really was insane. And also, after doing that night shift, I would go to the gym the next morning, like do a workout, and then I'd go shopping, probably, mostly. And then I'd go home, and then I'd go to bed that night and get up and go to work the next day.
I mean, that is impressive because I have excuses for not going to the gym or doing a workout now.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, I don't know how I did it. I really don't. But again, it's like you say, you kind of conditioned, and obviously not everybody's conditioned to be like that, and of course it depends on the way that we were brought up. Like I was brought up with a family of boys, like I've got two brothers.
Oh,
I have my dad, obviously, who's a man.
yeah.
And he, I mean, I was looking at our website actually today, and it just talks about like how my dad instilled in me that I could do anything I wanted if I put my mind to it and if I put a lot of effort into it. And this is so amazing. Like, it's so amazing to believe that I could do anything I wanted because I got every job that I went for, every single thing that I put my mind to, like, even if it wasn't something that I really loved, like, I just knew that I could do it. But at the same time, it kind of created a bit of a disconnect, a total disconnection from my body, because I'm up here in my head. I'm also using my will to just achieve at the expense of how my body feels. So instead of like thinking, which way do I want to go? Do I want to go this way? Do I want to do this? It was like, no, I'm going to do that. I'm going to achieve that. I'm going to get that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. So my poor body was just like, okay, it's just following me wherever I go, you know, but I'm not tuned into what it was that I really loved. It was just a head thing.
Yeah.
So that's how I did it. You know, I felt like I was Superwoman.
Yeah.
You know,
Sounds like you were, but
I was. It was like I was a machine, but that's it. There was just no connection to my body, so I was a total machine.
yeah, that, I mean, you've just, it's like summed up so beautifully, I think, the journey of the feminine, to me, the journey that I've been on, and that I'm guessing that you then, your body eventually forced you to go on as well, like this kind of coming back into the body, back into the heart, and coming out of the mind, when we've, everything in our life has often been wiring us to the opposite.
Yeah, I mean, even from the day that we're born, it's kind of the same. It's like we go through school and everything's based on, you know, somebody teaching you something, you using your head. Like we didn't get taught to feel, right?
Yeah.
We didn't get taught to tap into our heart, you know.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, the way I was brought up, I kind of just kept getting further and further away from my body, further and further away from my heart and what I truly wanted to do, you know. And even though I love sciences, like I also love languages, like I also loved art. But the way I was brought up again, it was like, well, art's not going to get you a career, you know. Art's not going to pay the bill. Languages aren't going to pay the bills.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, science, you know, I'll get a job, you know, in science you can always get a job, so I'll just do that.
Yeah.
So
tell me how from that place you went on your soul mission, or perhaps you kind of gathered what your soul mission is now to help other people.
So like I said in the beginning, it wasn't until I just totally burned out that things started to shift. I mean, when I was a radiographer, I went to the gym, yes, and I started doing some yoga, right? So for me, for this scientist mind, yoga just seemed a bit woo-woo, a bit out there, a bit, I don't know, you know, breathing, doing poses, moving your body, like what was that about? I didn't get it. You know, I was the person that if somebody didn't show up to class, I'm like, how can you not do that? So I was again in that pushy mentality, you know, and not taking time for myself. So I did have a little bit of a taste of like life outside of science. But it wasn't until I got really sick that I kind of opened my mind, because it felt like I was really blinkered to life. You know, I was working all those hours and I was doing what society wanted me to do. I had the house, the partner, the car, right? I was kind of going on this route of this is how life is. And then getting sick. Actually, the real turning point was getting sick and having tests done, and the tests came back as you're fine, like there's nothing wrong with you, whereas I was in bed more or less 24 hours a day, not being able to walk, not being able to talk. Whereas before I was working 90-hour weeks, right? So it's like something is wrong with me, like this is not normal.
Yeah.
And I think the worst thing was that because I did come from this science background, because I was working in the hospital, it was almost like my faith was in science. So I thought the doctor would say, this is what's wrong with you. These are the tablets we need to give you to get you better. And this is what the tests are showing you've got.
Yeah.
But instead, the tests, there's nothing on the tests, no tablets to give. And the doctor, to be honest, I was lucky that I got a doctor who knew a little bit about what I had. But still, like, because it was in 2004, because it was chronic fatigue syndrome, ME,
Yeah.
or I mean, they said it was post-viral. So basically, when I saw the doctor said, you know, you may get better in 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, 20 years, never.
Great.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I think that was the first thing, is just like, you know, it just felt a bit like a black hole that just swallowed me up in that time. And then kind of relying on the tests, and then the tests came back as negative, and it was just like, it felt like everything that I believed in had just been taken away from me. Like everything that I'd put my faith into had been taken away from me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's when that feels like kind of that moment where it's just like, you know, something else has to be done.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that fascinating? I mean, I can say this about your life. I imagine it was incredibly difficult to go through at the time, but how life gives us that opportunity. You know, as a scientist, you will have this removed, your faith in this completely removed, in order to be able to look for a different way of doing things.
Yeah, totally. I mean, looking back now, and it's always easier in retrospect, the signs were there.
Yeah.
Right? Like I would get ill quite a lot with kind of like flu symptoms. And I don't know, it's like starting to get into yoga even, it was like these little nudges from my body, like, come on, let's get you back on track. But because of this disconnect, I didn't listen. It was like, you know, I'd got into that programming and that habit of being able to do whatever my head wanted to do, whichever direction I wanted to go. So yeah, it was hard. It was really, really hard.
Yeah. So now you help other women and men, or just women?
Mainly women.
Mainly women. Yeah.
Mainly women. You know, since going through all of that, I've worked with women, like, as I've, you know, obviously I started kind of looking at what I needed to do to get better first. Before I got into the things that got me better, because I didn't know these things existed. I didn't really know about personal development. I didn't know about spiritual development. I didn't know about any of these therapies because I was like really blinkered, you know. So as soon as I got ill, I started, I was like, what can I change? The first thing that came to mind, well, I'll change my diet. You know, that'll get me better. I'll become vegetarian. Then I became vegan, you know, and nothing helped. And that's when I started getting into all the things that I do now that got me better. But yeah, it's mainly women. I think that's probably going to change over the next few years, but for now it's women.
Yeah, beautiful. And so you do combine business coaching, right? But is that right? So you help women with their business, but do it in a way where I'm assuming they don't have to hustle and burn themselves out in order to be successful.
Yeah, totally. Because I don't know, I mean, I think now it's like, you know, working with the feminine energy, it's amazing. Like, it seems a bit of a trend right now, right? Everyone's talking about it online. But it's amazing because, you know, women are coming into this awareness of how in their masculine energy that they've been before.
Right.
So it feels like, you know, around the planet, there's a bit of an awakening amongst women who are all talking about, you know, working from the feminine. And yeah, like, I think it's that thing of, it's only when you start to become aware of the feminine energy that you realize that you were really working in the masculine. Like, you know, at the time when I was doing the radiography job, I wasn't like, I'm working in my masculine energy, or, you know, I'm working too hard. It was just what you did.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Right.
right.
So yeah, like, you know, with the women that tend to come to me now are women that are in business, that, you know, obviously they've probably been following me, so they know my work. I talk about ease in business, making business be as easy as possible. So the women that tend to come to me do come to me to, you know, help them have more success in the business, you know, attract more clients, get to the next level income. But they're women who are making things hard for themselves, the women that are overthinking, that are in their head, that are pushing, that are thinking that they need to like post, you know, 5 times a day on Facebook or on social media, that they have that attitude of, you know, grabbing or getting clients. Yeah, they're just women who are doing the things that I did, you know, or getting tired, or, you know, doing something the old way when it needs to be done a different way and it's not working for them, or they're not trusting their path because they're not connected to their body's wisdom or what their body's saying, you know, get in touch with this person or create this offer or do this. Like, they're not connected to that, so they're just kind of spinning the wheels.
Yeah, and it's so easy to do that, isn't it? As an entrepreneur, there's so much out there online, you know, there's so many, you know, just follow this template or just do this, and I think, you know, there's 101 different ways of doing something. It's, we have to listen to ourselves.
I think, yeah, also, like, again, it comes back to this trust with women, especially as an entrepreneur. If you've not been an entrepreneur before, you have no clue what to do. So of course you're going to like follow somebody who's having some success. And at that time, usually you're not tuned into following somebody you like. It's just
We've frozen, I think. I'm just going to wait a couple of seconds, see if you come back.
system or their way of working is going to work for you. So it's just a complete journey, isn't it? It's a complete journey.
We just froze. I don't know if you noticed us freezing. I don't know if that comes out on the recording. So maybe, do you just want to recap that last little point just to make sure we got it?
I can't remember what I said now.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, oh, that was it. It was talking about, you know, when you come into something new, like entrepreneurship is just a total journey, that when you come into something new, you just immediately follow anybody who's having some success. Obviously, you know, masculine energy and feminine energies, masculine energy is not just reserved for men, right? Because I'm talking about women being in the masculine. Feminine's energy is not just reserved for women.
Right.
But the general rule is that masculine men have a lot of masculine energy and feminine women have a lot of feminine energy. So, you know, when we come into entrepreneurship or start working online, especially if we've come from a different career, especially like me with coming from kind of a science background and medicine, although I had that big gap to adjust, quite a few years to adjust. Some people can transition in and start following, a guy that works in a really masculine way of kind of marketing or selling, or the way he does things. And, especially if women aren't aware of this feminine energy, they're like, right, this guy seems all right, seems to be doing well, and then they just transfer that masculine energy just to more masculine energy in a business or a career or their work that they probably got in it because they didn't want to work as hard as they were working before, and they want to have something where they really enjoy it and get to do life at the same time, right?
That's right. Yeah. I definitely noticed that on my own path, like suddenly kind of recreating the shackles that I tried to leave behind in the corporate world, and then kind of just thinking, no, I don't want it. Maybe I don't want to do anything online if that's what's going to happen. And actually it was all part of the journey, like I think the pendulum needs to swing in completely opposite direction first. I needed to spend a lot of time on a beach in Mexico teaching yoga and meditation, but then to be able to come back to creating a business that wasn't a replica of the work life that I left, that was actually a much more nourishing and supportive container.
Yeah, totally. And that's just conditioning again, isn't it? We just kind of transfer our old job to this. But yeah, I totally agree. The pendulum really has to swing. It's like, when I first got ill, obviously the pendulum was at science. And then when I got sick, it kind of went all the way to like spiritual stuff and healing. It's like I didn't want to look into science whatsoever. And now it's kind of, well, not just now, but kind of for the past few years, it's kind of, at a point where everything comes together again, and like you talking about marketing and like, working a little bit more corporately, would you say, before?
Yeah, completely.
Even though it seems really different to what you do now, like everything that we've done, it was never a waste of time.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. It always comes into what you're doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it completely, I think like you said, like I really tried to just distance myself from marketing. I had a view that I was going to travel the world, and I was just never going to see it again. I was going to leave it all behind, and I was going to become a masseur or something like that, become a Reiki practitioner. And yet it has informed what I do now, because so much of my journey was having all of these skills in brand and marketing, and also in acting and presenting, and so and yet,
too.
Yeah, before the marketing, and yet struggling to put myself out there, and then just thinking, why? And being in that place where that I was still a little bit a hamster on the wheel. Even when I was on the kind of beachfront in Mexico teaching yoga, I was still desperate to get this online business off the ground, and yet it wasn't happening. And it just, I was kept sticking. And in the end, it was that journey of, why isn't it happening when I should have all the know-how of what to do, and can figure the rest out. And it was because of all the internal stuff, all the blocks, the fear of failure, the fear of not being worthy or lovable, or, all of it, the self-sabotage that I had to wade through. And that's what now informs my work, so that when we do come to market ourselves, we can do it with confidence without those blocks being in the way, but also from a place of something authentic, coming from a place of authenticity as well. Not feeling like a fraud or like we're living in that false mask still.
Did you know there were such things as inner blocks?
Oh,
before you kind of got your online business going?
Like I would say really a long time ago, like when I was about 30, I was in a very stressful job in London, but it was a very prestigious job. But it was like about 3 years into my marketing career, I like climbed the ladder very quickly. It was like fly by the seat of your pants, career management. And I got this job, and as the marketing manager for the launch of a train station called St Pancras International. It was this big project, big redevelopment. I suddenly found myself sitting around a table with board directors, with chief executives, like communications directors, and having to hold my own. And at that point, I would have described myself as a spiritual person, because I've like been meditating for 15, 20 years, but there are layers, as we since discover, you know. And I definitely did some work, didn't do some work on myself. I wouldn't say I was conscious, but what I did unearth at that point was, there's just something in me that doesn't feel good enough to be here. So I had that awareness, but I didn't have anything else. And then as I became more conscious, I think, you know, as my meditation practice deepened, again, this is while I'm still in the corporate world, but I think I read Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And I've started to read Eckhart Tolle. This is about 10 years ago now, and became much, much more conscious. Yeah.
Feel the fear and do it anyway.
Then I became slightly more conscious, but I would still say, no, the journey of those limiting beliefs has been a long time to unearth. You know, it's been a real process. And often for me, my own spiritual path and that journey of personal development has felt like, oh, right, I get it now. And then like 6 months down the line, I'm like, oh no, I feel like I'm just at the starting point, right? I'm just at the starting blocks. And so like I had a bit of a dark night of the soul, I would say, in 2014, when I could see, I had a degree of consciousness, so I could see these repeating patterns happening in my life. But I was incredibly painful, because if you're conscious, you think you should be able to stop it, and yet there's this compulsion to repetition that happens. And what I've since discovered is that really that pain is then what takes you, you know, into the next layer of learning and healing. And so that dark night of the soul was, I think, where I really understood the dynamics of the big archetypal patterns playing out of my life, in terms of having a lot of codependent behaviors and repeating patterns with narcissists. So the kind of narcissist codependent pattern. So I'd say I had a certain awareness, but you know, when I hit that point, everything opened up and I thought, oh shit, I'm just at the beginning. Then I did a meditation teacher training, which was the first training that I did into the meditation of the heart. And again, it almost felt a bit like I was, again, starting at the beginning. And that seemed to be my spiritual path for a good couple of years. Like,
It's like a spiral, isn't it? They talk about, you know, you seem to hit the same spot, but actually it's at a higher level. It's the similar thing, but it's the next level.
Yeah, that's right. And actually, it's a really great question, because I haven't consciously thought about it myself before. But then when I first got into the feminine power world. So now I'm a feminine power coach and leader. But when I first discovered the teachings of Dr. Zamet, I started by doing the 7-week course, which is how a lot of people do it. And then the coaching system involves a lot of inner work and connecting into this younger part of you and what she's feeling, what she needs, and what she believes about herself. And that's when I first unearthed that there was a part of me that just didn't feel lovable, that felt very alone. And that was a big, and that she's feeling that. And it means something about her needs. Like, this was a revelation. We have feelings and they link to needs, right?
It seems so funny talking about them now, because it's like, it's stuff that feels so obvious. But you need that level of awareness, don't you, to actually be aware that these things are there and that they need working with.
No, that's right. And that's in my chapter I do talk about that as well, like the kind of that journey of the needs and desires. Like you said, we get so disconnected from the body down that we don't know how to drop into our body and actually just honor what it is that we desire, and not just these superficial desires, but this yearning, but listening to that.
And I think that is almost, I don't like to say the word problem, but it is kind of a problem with society. It's like, it's that disconnection from the self, you know. And I think before me getting sick, with that disconnection from myself, there wasn't anything that would make me connect to myself more than what happened to me.
Mm.
Because I was in bed, you know, with all of me, with my racing mind when my head wasn't foggy, you know, everything was just coming up. And like, you know, people nowadays obviously watch TV or just keep themselves entertained, but they're not with themselves. Like, you know, even, you know, I'm back at home at my parents now. My dad's always at work. If he's not working, he's always busy doing something. My mum's always busy doing something. Like I don't see my mum just sit down, right, for a few minutes and not talk or just be with herself. So when, you know, when I got sick, I'd done exactly the same. I'd totally distracted. You know, I was busy working, I was busy with friends, I was always doing stuff at the gym, shopping, whatever it was, but I hadn't connected to myself. So to be with myself 24/7, especially when my body physically couldn't do anything and move,
Mm.
my head was just going crazy.
Mm.
And I
Yeah.
wouldn't have connected to myself in that way hadn't what happened to me happen. I was too busy and too blinkered. So it was almost like I needed this in a massive way. It was like a massive slap, but really, you know, that
Mm.
knocked me completely and utterly off track.
Yeah.
So I had no other choice but to connect to myself, go inside and tap into what I needed to do to come out of it.
Mm. Mm. Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you. I was thinking mine wasn't physical illness, it was depression, but there's always something, isn't there? It seems to be on the soul mission path. There's some one thing that, yeah.
I think like you say, it's a dark night of the soul, and people generally who get onto this path have gone through something major in their lives, such as illness or a bereavement, something that's almost shook them. It's shook them to their soul, that they have no other choice than to connect to their soul.
Mhm.
And through that, the soul mission, or you know, the soul purpose comes.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean to say, you know, for people who are watching who haven't had, you know, been really shook to the soul, it doesn't have to come like this,
Yeah.
you know.
That's right. Only if you're very stubborn.
Exactly, you
Yeah.
know, which is why, you know, with my work now, you start the awareness right now, so those things don't happen, so people can start to look at, oh, I don't have to do it this way. And even, you know, coming back to you talking about feeling the fear and do it anyway, my God, like, I think I wrote on my Facebook post yesterday about that book. I said, feel the fear and do it anyway. And I can't remember what I wrote, but something about, no, don't do that unless your mind and your body's on board. Because also, like with the chronic fatigue, it's almost like your nervous system is burnt out. So when I first started getting better, I remember doing something, I can't remember what it was called, reverse therapy. I've seen the words there, I couldn't quite read them. Reverse therapy. And that was like the first kind of therapy that was out when I had ME. And it was about listening to your body and what it wanted. So that really connected me to my body. So I'd be in bed and I'm like, okay, I want to go for a walk. And so I'd just tune into my body, close my eyes and see what my body would say. Be like, okay, let's just, you know, get dressed and we'll just take a few steps and see how that is. So I ended up doing this like every few minutes. And then I'd get outside the house and I'd get down the road and then I'd tune in and, okay, what we're going to do now? My body's just like, is terrified. It was just absolutely terrified. And there was just nothing else that I could do apart from go home. So when it comes to feeling the fear, like if I'd have felt that fear and pushed through, I'd have been in bed, you know, more for the next 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 2 months. I wouldn't know. So there was something there with that fear that had to be worked on. You know, you talking about the inner blocks, that's some fear to be worked with, because it's not a matter of just, you know, talking to the body or saying, we'll be okay, let's do it, let's try it and see how you are. It's like that fear is something that needs to be worked with and cleared, so that that block's not there, so you can move forwards again.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, just thinking like that was my approach. My whole career was just fuck it, like pushing through, working really hard to get successful, you know? And that's why it really didn't work when I started traveling, and I kept trying to like power through, set up my blog, set up my online business, set up my email list, all this stuff you're told to do.
Do all the things.
Doing all the things when actually what my body needed to do was heal. Like, and I can see that now. I was very, you know, not unaware of it at the time, but actually I didn't know I'd gone on a healing journey, but that was what I'd gone on, you know.
If you'd have known, would you have gone on that journey? Because I wouldn't have.
No, you'd never sign up for it, right?
I'll sign up.
You just think, oh,
losing my job, all my friends.
Yeah, no, the spiritual path never actually gives a realistic advertising campaign, does it? It's just like, yeah, it's lovely, do some some green juice, it'll be great. And then you're like, wow, what is this?
It lures you in, doesn't it?
Definitely, yeah. And it's worth it in the end. And I just think this is why these conversations are so valuable, because like you said, like I say to my clients, it doesn't have to take you 7 years of traveling the world like a crazed person like I did. You know, you don't have to make the mistakes that I made, which caused me a lot of suffering at the time, because I was great at beating myself up as well. But now I see, like you said, they have a place. I had to kind of blindly forge my own path, because at least now I can share with others that there is a structure. And like speaking to you and speaking to other women that are on that path, you can see, oh, there are certain milestones, right? There is a kind of a map. It's just there aren't that many people speaking about the map.
Exactly. And I feel, you know, those signs along the way, once you're connected to yourself, to your body, and not being distracted, then you can recognize those signs without having to go through, you know, what we went through. The signs, you know, I always say it's like they start off with like a little gentle nudge, or do this, or a little whisper, and they're always there. And there, for me, I think they were there for years, you know, and I was just like, no, push them aside, it's inconvenient, get on with life, you know, get on with my goals, get on with my plans, push those aside until it was just too late.
Absolutely.
It was too much, you know, and the system just gives up. It can't do it any longer. And it's like a total, you know, it's like what you were talking about with the yoga. It's like a total reset. You have to go through a total reset. Change the way you think, change what you believe, you know. And once this happens, like all the inner stuff comes up like a massive monster in front of your face. It's like, hi, you know, we've always been here, can you see us now? You know, you've got to do something to shift that, to move forwards again. It's like talking about the fear. It's not something that can be consciously negotiated with, you know. It's the subconscious stuff, and that's the work that I do, is all subconscious stuff. You know, finding the beliefs, finding what fears are stopping you be more you in your content, or finding why you're making it so hard, or, you know, seeing what's underneath that overthinking and over analyzing, or believing that you need to push to get clients rather than receive clients or receive the money, or trust yourself, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's such it's such a big thing. It's conditioning. What can you say? It's conditioned. We're conditioned this way. We're conditioned to be in the masculine energy. We're conditioned to push. We're conditioned to achieve. You know, we're not, as a society, taught to lean back and relax. That maybe if we have 5 minutes, then the next 3 offers that are really soul aligned are going to come through, you know, complete with a strategy, you know, rather than sitting slogging, you know, writing down your offers and figuring out your funnel and how it's going to all work. Like we're just shifting from the masculine to the feminine energy more. And that doesn't mean to say we're just shifting into the feminine, right? We already have that masculine, but we're tapping back into the feminine and removing the conditioning that tells us that it's not okay to be in the feminine.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And that we can come in back into balance. We still need the masculine. We still need that container, the direction and the action taking, but it comes in service of our receptivity and of our inner wisdom and of the feminine that rises up, and then it can,
and also it's like what you said with the pendulum as well, like from masculine, then we can come all the way into the feminine, you know, like some people I'll work with will be working with the feminine, and then it'll get to a point of they're not doing much in their business or they don't feel like it, you know, and this is what we have to be aware of, because this is where the blocks come in as well. And sometimes it catches me out where, you know, a lot of the way that I work is just, I get a lot of my business ideas through doing life and through living. So, you know, before lockdown, going, you know, and sitting in a cafe somewhere, or going for a walk, and then it's like an idea will come for a post or an idea will come for an offer. And I just feel that, what was I even talking about just then? I can't even.
Well, we were talking about like the masculine being in service to the feminine and the inspiration coming from the feminine.
Oh yeah, oh that's it. Yeah, that's the one. So I tend to kind of weave my work into my life, and that's how, you know, I can get 10 ideas for a post all at once, and then I'll get my computer out and I'll have to schedule them all in. But it's through being in the feminine that all this comes. But we can get too much into that.
Yes.
So sometimes I'll be like, oh, I don't want to work. I don't want to write a post. But I know if that happens for a few days, it's like not me being in the feminine. It's like, what's going on here? Like there may be some apprehension about something that's coming up, or me not wanting to do something. So yes, we talk about getting into the feminine more, but it goes a lot deeper than just like relaxing.
Totally.
Or not trying or not making an effort, because that's the conscious stuff. You know, this is the subconscious. It's like, how's your body preventing you, you know, not making so much of an effort with that post or trying to grasp at clients? You know, what is your how's your body conditioned so that you can't allow the clients to come or receive, you know, messages in your inbox, or, you know, all those sorts of things. It's good to start off with the conscious stuff, but it goes way deeper than that, way deeper.
Absolutely. As someone who's spent today before I spoke to you going and getting a coffee and a Danish pastry and having a lie in, then yes, I completely agree. It's such a tightrope. It's a really delicate balance.
It is a balance, and everybody's balance is going to be slightly different, you know. And also with the masculine and feminine energy as well, like like my business is run 80% feminine and 20% masculine.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I know this because I do muscle testing, so I kind of can test for people to see how they can run their business with the masculine and feminine energy. I know the book, and I wrote this in the book, I think the book is 60% masculine and 40% feminine. I don't know about this interview either, but, you know, but we work with feminine and masculine energy, and everybody's like different percentages as well. So I think that the good thing to do is kind of remove the conditioning that makes us be in the masculine, so we can connect more to our innate feminine energy and bring that through. And it's going to look so different for different people. So for some people, like going back to the marketing, can market in a more masculine way, and it's going to be aligned for their business. Whereas sometimes I'll do, you know, that way of marketing, but most of the times it's not that way. It's more of a feminine way. You know, so it's finding out what's aligned for people in terms of their energy in their business, because, you know, for some people, connecting more to their feminine, and if they use the feminine more in the business, it might not take off because it's not as aligned as, you know, having more masculine in the business.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that. So you're kind of tailoring it individually for clients and what's right for them.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people also, you know, just think that they just don't do anything. They'll have a feminine business and they just don't do anything.
I think that's not the reality.
No, it's not the reality. No.
No. Lisa, thank you so much for your time. This has been such a great chat. I feel like I could, I realize, I feel like I could like chat all day about this subject.
I feel there's so much
My
to
favorite
talk
thing
about.
to talk
It's been
about.
really nice.
Yeah, it's been really lovely. So buy the book, everyone, Friday, 21st of May, and I'm really looking forward to reading more about your incredible story. Wow.
Oh, yours too. I can't wait to read, and everybody's as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thanks, love.
Thank you. Goodbye.